Hello neighbors, it's Brad here from Etrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the CURT Class 1 trailer hitch receiver on a 2020 Toyota Prius. Now, you're probably wondering, well, if you have a Prius, you probably know why you're getting a hitch, but a lot of times people go, well, what are you going to tow with that? Well, it's not necessarily towing that comes to mind with a hitch sometimes. Sometimes, like 1.25 inch comes in handy for things like a bike rack or a small cargo carrier. But at the end of the day, you could tow a small trailer, and that's why adding a hitch to really any vehicle opens up to what you can do with that vehicle, and you're not just stuck with the confines of what was given to you from the factory. Class 1 hitches by nature are going to be 1.25 inch wide and tall for your receiver tube opening, and that means that you are going to be a little bit limited when it comes to accessories, and that you're going to want to look for 1.25 inch ones. Now, if you have accessories that are 2 inch, there are adapters that allow you to put those on there, but something to keep in mind, anytime you add those any of those adapters, it's going to extend really the tongue weight that's going to be put on here. So if a 2 inch is something you're looking for, instead of getting an adapter, there are 2 inch ones available for the Prius that you can pick up. But being that this is a Class 1, you are going to be limited to this small size. But overall, this is a really clean look when it's installed. You'll see that really the only thing that you're going to be able to see is going to be the receiver tube opening and the safety chain loops. And even this sits pretty well recessed, but in a nice perfect spot to where it's really out of the way and you can still get your underbody panels in place. Now, whatever accessory you put in your receiver, you're going to be using a 1/2 inch pinning clip. Now, your 2 inch ones are going to be a 5/8, so if you don't have a 1/2 inch pinning clip, if you're picking up accessories, make sure that they come with one. And if you plan on leaving accessories on your vehicle long term, say a bike rack, you leave it on for the season, you might want to look at a locking pinning clip. It becomes a good deterrent. That way people aren't going to be able to just walk by and take that accessory with them. So again, 1/2 inch pinning clip, not included with the hitch, but make sure you have that. Safety chain loops are just going to be a hoop style. It's a little bit tight here, but I can still get a standard S hook or even a larger clevis style. And as I mentioned, just because it's a Prius doesn't mean that you couldn't pull a small kayak trailer or even a wave runner or a small utility trailer. But you are going to want to check with the vehicle's owner's manual to see what it's capable of towing before you just hook up and hit the road. Take the vehicle's recommendation from the manufacturer and compare it with your hitch. And this one has weight capacities that, well, they're pretty standard for a Class 1. And that's going to be a 2,000 pound gross trailer weight rating for towing, and that's going to be the weight of the trailer plus the accessories loaded onto it. Your tongue weight rating is going to be the downward pressure on the inside of the receiver tube opening. And for more times than not, that's really going to account for those bike racks and cargo carriers that you'll be putting on here. Now, I've had 1.25 inch on my own previous vehicles because that's all that was available, and that still allowed me to get a 2-bike platform bike around, no problem. I was able to even put a cargo carrier to take small loads of stuff. So it's still definitely usable. Now, keep in mind, you're not going to be able to get a 4-bike bike rack on this 1.25 inch. It's just not there. It can't really support that. So just keep that in mind with those accessories. Now, another thing to keep in mind too is as those accessories are on here, bike racks and cargo carriers, it is going to extend the length of the vehicle. So as you go up inclines, sometimes they can bottom out. That's just something to keep in mind. And something else that's going to be important is making sure that some of those can stow in a vertical fashion on your vehicle. And to make sure that those accessories properly work with your Prius, you can take this measurement, which is from the center of the hitch pin hole to the furthest point of the fascia, which is about 3 3/4. And that's really going to be important because making sure that it sticks out far enough for it to be vertically stowed without making contact with the fascia is going to be part of making sure that it can stow upwards. Now, I don't worry too much that you're going to have any issues with that. Now, keep in mind when it's folded up, it may block the taillights, your camera, license plate, and you may not be able to open up the hatch with that in that vertical position, but you can just simply drop those down and you'll be back to good. Another thing that's going to be important, if you are planning on choosing a ball mount to tow that small trailer, you're going to want to make sure that you have the proper riser drop necessary. So from the top of the receiver tube opening to the ground on ours today, it's coming in at 14 inches. So that's actually a pretty high ground clearance for a car like this. So if you are pulling that trailer, get that trailer nice and level on its jack and measure from the ground to the top of the coupler. Take that measurement and then compare that with our 14-inch measurement. From there, you can determine the riser drop necessary to get that trailer nice and level before hitting the road. Now with that being said, if you watch the video and decide, well, I don't have the place, the time, the tools, or even the want to get it installed myself, so if that's the case, you can find someone close to you to get it installed by using our dealer locator, and that way they can get it installed, you'll be ready to hit the road, and you'll be going on your adventures. Now with that being said, let's take a look at the installation. You can decide if this is something you're going to tackle, and if you are, I'll walk you through step by step to get it installed. Now throughout the installation, our main goal is we're going to be removing this lower portion, and that's really nice because for a hitch like this that bolts up where your bumper beam is, normally you're going to be required to pull the whole fascia off, but that's not the case here. Now with that being said, we are going to be removing quite a bit of plastic push pins and hardware for this rear section to pull off, that way we can get the hitch up. So I recommend having a nice organized spot to keep all of your hardware. It'll make reinstallation that much easier. First thing we're going to start with, trim panel tool or a small flathead screwdriver. We're going to be removing the plastic push pins, and this lower panel is what we're going to be trying to remove. So we'll start here. You're going to find that there's going to be two of these, but this underbody panel is just going to be this forward one. And to pry these off, there's going to be slots on all sides. Just work on the center and try to go from each side if you can. Try to get that center portion to pry open. And these clips can break, so just take your time here. And if you do break them, not to worry, you can find replacement ones. Here we have some performance tools ones, or you can go to an auto parts store. Main thing is just kind of take your time here so you can reuse them. So when prying on that center, you should be able to get that center popped out. And it may take the whole thing with it. That's okay. Just make sure you have both of the pieces. So for instance, this one, the whole thing's probably going to come out, and that's all right. But generally, you can pull that center section out. It's kind of like a drywall anchor, so as you pull this out, this will get more narrow. And we're going to continue popping these out. So we have this one here. These are all kind of fighting me a little bit. And if they are, giving you a little struggle here, sometimes it's easy to spray some soapy water on here. It'll help loosen up dust, dirt, and debris to make this a little bit looser. But as we start to get these popped out, this little section here is going to be this one, this plastic push pin right here. And there's also going to be a series of quarter turn plastic, I guess you call them nuts, that we'll be taking off as well. So those are pretty easy to get to. Once I get this popped out, I'll show you what it looks like. Now I'm on the other side of the vehicle just to show you what these quarter turns look like. But a large flathead screwdriver, if you put them in these slots and just counterclockwise, this will loosen it up. Sometimes you can do these by hand, but generally a screwdriver will make it nice. And I'm pulling pressure down. That way it can work itself off of those studs. So when you get to these, this is how you're going to remove them. And once you have those plastic push pins and that quarter turn loosened, we should be able to slide this out. It's kind of tight here just because of the exhaust pipe, but we can pull this out, or you can wait to pull some of the rest of your plastic down to give you a little bit more space. But our goal here is we remove this one. We're going to go to this center section as well as this outside section. So again, just plastic push pins and those quarter turns. So go through and get these all taken down, and we'll set them aside for now. Now to draw back this lower fascia portion that we're going to eventually remove, we're going to want to focus on these white clips. It's where the painted portion of the bumper meets the black plastic, and you'll see that this white tab, it's got a flat section and then just a little snapping portion. So trying to pry down on this tab to pull this back will unlock it and allow this to kind of loosen up. So these can be a little bit tricky. I would recommend maybe a flathead screwdriver or something to press that tab down while pulling back. So just take your time. We'll get these removed on both sides. So pushing down on that tab, if you can push that clip forward, mine just shot, and now this loosens up. There's also a tab here. If you just push in slightly here, we're going to want this to kind of draw out, and then we'll get to the other side. But this is going to open it up enough for us to get our bumper beam and our cross beam taken out. Once you have both corners, like we have here, loosened up with the two clips on each side, we're eventually going to pop off the rest of the clips, and they're not exactly easy to get to with that bumper beam in the way. So we can gain access to the bolts where the bumper beam attaches to the frame. Looks like we have 4 total, and it's just going to be these bolts. And we're going to do that on both sides. We're going to get all of this taken down, and then we should be able to pry this back far enough to be able to pull that out of the way. Now these are all going to require a 12mm socket to get these loose. I might recommend getting all of them taken out, maybe leaving one of them on there on one side just with a few threads as you get the other side. That way it's not dropping down on you. That hardware taken out, we'll get this removed. Now there is a tab that holds this up, so just lift up a little and then pull back, and we should be able to get that to drop out of there. And then we're going to pull this whole section down. Now I tried to look to see if we could leave this portion on, but as we're going to put our hitch up along with the bumper beam, it's going to be really tight. So getting this panel removed is going to be key. And if you look up at the clips where it continues on, we have those white locking tabs like we had previous, but also our wiring harness that's back here. You'll see this plastic Christmas tree, as we call them. It just slides into this tab. We're going to want to pry this out because this tab slips through the painted portion, and that's kind of what locks this in place additionally. So to get these pried out, just work at them like this. Sometimes you can push on the back side to get them to pop out. Now, not all of the wiring do you have to remove it, just the ones that are attached to the lower portion. So we'll be getting this one, and well, it looks like as we go along, it's going to be just about all of them now that I look at it. So we'll go through. This one looks pretty simple with these white clips. This you can just simply, you should be able to press this tab and get this to separate, but this just kind of pinches around it. So what I'll do is just kind of pry on the back side and pop that off. So we'll continue on until we get all of the things popped out. Once we get these retaining clips out, we should be able to lower this black plastic portion out of the way. Now those white tabs, I did find that a small flathead, if you push in and really get that push down on that locking tab and then push back with the screwdriver, that'll really help. As far as the wiring that goes in, the trim panel tool really does come in handy here. And also those tabs that go in have locking tabs as well. So I'll pop this down and I'll show you what those look like and how to tackle those. But this should get this lower portion to drop down. And then there's some kind of larger snap-in tabs that are a little bit different as well. So I'll show you those when I get it popped out. Those oddball ones are kind of just the locking portions here. But you'll see these tabs, if they're fighting you, just push your finger back and that should be enough while you pull pressure down for it to pop out, and just kind of work your way down until you get this completely removed. Now we'll set this aside and we're going to start getting our hitch in place. Now here shortly you may want an extra set of hands to help you raise this all in position because we're going to be putting the hitch up and then sandwiching the hitch with our bumper beam and then using the new hardware to bolt it back into place. Before we do that, we are going to modify just slightly the backside of our bumper beam. So the portion that bolts into the frame, because this is going to have our hitch in place against the body, we need to bend these tabs in. So just a hammer, or even if you have a set of pliers, just kind of bend this back to where it's flush. And as long as this portion's flush, we'll be good. We have this on both sides, so just knock that in. And you can see pretty quickly why having two hands is going to be pretty helpful here to raise this up and then get this all aligned. What I'm going to do, just because I'm doing this by myself, is I'm going to grab our new hardware and then pass this through just to hold that in place. It'll keep everything aligned. I got one on each side. And this will be nice too, because as we raise this up, we can start to thread these in just a few threads, and that'll get it all started. So again, might be helpful to have an extra set of hands here, but if you're by yourself, this is a way to do it as well. So we don't need to tighten, we just want a few of those threads started. And you may have to kind of align the hitch and bumper beam to kind of get it to all align. But once you get one started on each side, the hitch will support itself. We'll just put the rest of our hardware in. Now these should thread in by hand really easily. So if they are kind of binding, best bet is to raise the hitch up or the bumper beam and just kind of shift that to where these draw in by hand. That's why it's important to do this by hand. We don't want to cross thread those weld nuts. That's the structural mounting point for our hitch. So just take your time, get them all started by hand. And like I said, you can see I'm kind of bouncing the hitch around, and then at this point I can lift up the bumper beam to get those threads started. I got all of those started. We're going to want to snug this down. I would recommend maybe by hand, or my electric ratchet isn't very strong here. It's going to be a 13mm socket, and I recommend just kind of working your way around. Don't completely snug one down, because it'll start to draw everything back. You know, so not only are we supporting the hitch with that hardware, but also our bumper beam. So we really want this to go back on properly. So I'll snug it down, and then we'll come back with a torque wrench. So all the more reason, no need to get crazy here. We're just going to want to get everything snug down. Now once you get everything all snugged down, we're going to come back with a torque wrench and that same socket. Torque settings found in the instruction manual, and this is just going to ensure that we have it tightened down exactly how they want it from the manufacturer. And this is going to be important, especially for weld nuts like we have, because it's very possible to over tighten these, and that's going to cause more damage than good. You also want it tight enough, obviously, for the lifespan of the hitch to be able to tow stuff. So we'll go through with our torque wrench, get these all torqued down properly. Now if you need a torque wrench, we have these available here at Etrailer. You can generally go to an auto parts store and rent one for free, but this will make sure that our hitch is going to stay on. Now we're going to grab our rear fascia plastic, and we're going to get this pop back in place and get all of our wiring and clips back in. Now it's going to be tight here, and it's going to be tight to get those all back in now that that bumper beam's in, but we should be able to slide this in. Now keep in mind your fascia is pretty flexible, so if you need to kind of move this about, you can absolutely do that. But I'm just going to try to get our clips slid into those holes, and then we can draw this up and in. Now everything went back together once we kind of got everything snapped in pretty easily. And as we start to put our underbody panels on, the passenger side is going to be no issue. The driver's side, they recommend trimming it out, and you can trim before, but really after makes it a little bit easier. You can see how this plastic bows down. That's because it's resting against the hitch. So if we head underneath, we can see exactly where it's rubbing against the hitch. So we're just going to cut a notch here so this plastic can kind of relax a little bit. So best way, if you have any cutting method, you can just cut down, and we'll take a box out of here, and this will draw up. So just cut out enough to where this will cinch around it. We're also going to be trimming out the middle one. We're going to want to do that on a tabletop, but I'll get this trimmed out first and make sure it fits well. The center section normally would just drop back in place, but it's going to have some clearance issues with our hitch. So there's measurements in the instructions, and I double checked them against just mocking this up. Something I would potentially consider is the width. You might want to go a little bit wider just based on these welds, but cutting this out is going to allow this to slip around the hitch. So we're going to be cutting this out. You might have noticed I use a multi-tool. It's just an oscillating blade. That makes for really clean square cuts, but again, whatever tool you have to cut through this plastic is going to be the best option. Just take your time. I use tape as a template to just kind of follow along. If you want, you can use a marker, whatever works best for you. But once we get this cut out, I'm going to get all the burrs filed down, because that's really what you're going to see every time you use the hitch. So take a little bit of extra time just to make it look clean. Before filing, you can always cut off more, but we want to test to make sure that it's going to sit properly. And everything's looking good here. So I am going to file this out, and then we'll get all of our plastic push pins back in place. And then from there, That's it. As far as the installation goes, all that'd be left to do is load up your accessory, put in your pin and clip, and you're ready to hit the road. Hopefully this video helped you get your hitch installed on your Prius, or you found someone to install it for you. Either way, I'd love to see how it went for you, and also what adventures are you taking your Prius on? Are you putting a cargo carrier? Are you putting a bike rack? Are you towing a trailer? Send us some pictures. Let us know how the install went. Any comments, tips, tricks, whatever you may have, feel free to share it. We love seeing you all out on your adventures. It makes us really give us pride in what we're doing, making sure that we're helping folks like you. My name's Brad. Thanks for watching the install on a CURT Class 1 trailer hitch receiver on a 2020 Toyota Prius.